The following may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
7-year-old Jason Lewis, who was last seen on April 12th, has been found. No further information was provided by the TTPS. Argument over cell phone recording leaves 2 women injured at Steel Restaurant and Lounge. A woman was chopped with a cutlass and another suffered a head injury after an altercation over a phone camera recording in San Fernando on Friday morning. The victims are 2 women, ages 18 and 20 respectively, both of Orchid Gardens, Pleasantville. Police are searching for a man and a woman in connection with the incident. A police report said that the victims were at Steel Restaurant and Lounge at South Park Mall in Taruba near San Fernando, when at around 5:30 a.m. they observed the woman holding her phone and recording. The first victim approached the woman and informed her not to record her. Police were told that an argument erupted, and the man dealt the first victim a slap to her face, then pushed her. The argument escalated into a fight, and the second victim sustained a wound to her head, the report said. Security officers intervened, and the 4 exited the establishment. Police were told that the man attacked the first victim with a cutlass and chopped her on both hands. The woman and man both ran off and escaped. The victims were conveyed to the San Fernando General Hospital, where they were treated. PC's Jogi and PC Bridgemohan of the Mon Repos police responded, and police were told that the injuries were not life-threatening. PC Jogi is continuing investigations. Nurse wounded and soldier erased whilst trying to defuse an argument. A soldier was erased while attempting to be the peacemaker in a domestic altercation in San Fernando before daybreak on Friday. Junior Chase, 35, of Silal Trace, Pepper Village, Faizabad, was shot multiple times and died at the scene. Chase, a soldier for 14 years, was recently promoted to the rank of corporal. The incident occurred at around 4:30 a.m. at Cepero Street, San Fernando. Chase's family said he was with his girlfriend when she got into a heated argument with her close male relative. Chase attempted to defuse the situation when a man approached them from behind and opened fire. Chase was hit in the head and back. He drew his service pistol and opened fire on them. Police suspect that he shot one of the assailants. Police said an innocent bystander was also shot. That victim, a nurse of Cocoya near San Fernando, was hospitalized in stable condition. The shooter ran off and escaped. The soldier's father, Leroy Chase, said he was confident that justice will be served. "I believe in God, and everything's in God's hands. They can run, but they cannot hide. God's eyes are on them now. It's only a matter of time that justice will be served," Leroy said. Describing his son as a people's person, Leroy said he was at home when he got a call from Crystal, who was screaming and crying. "She said my son just got shot and he did. I asked her where they were and she said by Cepero Street. They came out to buy gyro. She was with him. They were not in the car. They were outside and there was a confrontation between her and someone else. My son stepped in and said, 'All you behave, cool that.' An argument broke out and the man's friends came out and started to shoot at my son," Leroy added. He said 2 weeks ago another person issued death threats to Chase. "It hurts a lot to see him die like this, knowing you bring up a child the proper way. He lives with me and I always tell him to be a good soldier, and whatever you're doing, give your best," Leroy said. He said his other son, who lives in the United States, was alerted and has started making arrangements to return to Trinidad. An autopsy will be done on the body next week, pending a COVID-19 test. Anyone with information on the homicide can contact Crime Stoppers at 800-TIPS. Tobago cashier robbed at service station by armed assailants. Tobago police are on the hunt for two assailants who attacked and robbed a female cashier of $400 at the Orange Hill service station on Thursday. Reports are that around 1:30 p.m., the victim, Tia Henry, was walking towards a quick shop at the service station when two men alighted from a silver-colored Nissan Tida, which was parked outside. Police said the men pointed guns at her. She became frightened, and one of the men grabbed her handbag, which had $400 cash, a phone stand, and charger. They then got back into the vehicle and escaped. THA Chief Secretary Farley Augustine mentioned the incident at Thursday's The Post Executive Council media briefing. He said he learned that the men attacked the cashier coming out of the booth during a change in shift. Fortunately, the cashier only had $400 in her purse of her own funds, Augustine said. Augustine said the men had also reportedly gun-butted the woman. He added the gas station's camera system showed that the number plates on the car were fake. Augustine urged citizens to report anything they believe to be suspicious. If you are in a position where you notice anything suspicious, please do not hesitate to notify the police because you are a part of our policing service. The United States 2021 Human Rights Report on Trinidad and Tobago. The United States Department of State recently released its 2021 Human Rights Report and found credible reports that members of the security forces committed abuses. Those significant human rights issues included unlawful arbitrary homicides by police, refoulement, which is a forcible return of refugees or asylum seekers to a country where they are likely to be persecuted or punished, and serious acts of corruption and human trafficking, the report said. The 2021 Human Rights Report also spoke to issues such as refugees, prison conditions, and corruption. It cited some of the hotly debated and covered stories of 2020 to 2021 as examples. The report was released on April 12 by U.S. Secretary of State Anthony J. Blinken, and it documents the status of human rights and worker rights in 198 countries and territories around the world. The 21-page document looked at issues under 7 sections: respect for the integrity of the person, respect for civil liberties, freedom to participate in the political process, corruption and lack of transparency in government, governmental posture towards international and non-governmental investigation of alleged abuses of human rights, discrimination, and societal abuses and worker rights. Under these sections, issues such as arbitrary deprivation of life and other unlawful or politically motivated homicides, prison conditions, treatment of detainees, internet freedom, protection of refugees, and sexual harassment were also addressed. The report acknowledged that the government took steps to identify, prosecute, and punish officials who committed human rights abuses or corruption, but impunity continued because of open-ended investigations and the slow pace of criminal judicial proceedings. citing the Andrea Barrett kidnapping and homicide and the arrest of 4 suspects in that matter. The report said there were credible reports that police committed arbitrary and unlawful homicides. It cited the deaths of suspects Joel Balcon and Andrew Morris. In February, the Police Complaints Authority (PCA) and the Professional Standards Bureau launched investigations into the deaths of Balcon and Morris. In October, the PCA completed its investigation and concluded that Balcon and Morris were subjected to torture and acts of violence that led to their deaths. The case was referred to Director of Public Prosecutions Roger Gaspard, who at the end of the year 2021 was reviewing PCA findings and had not determined whether to file charges, it said. It found as well that although TT's law prohibits use of excessive force, it found that there were reports that police officers and prison guards sometimes used excessive force. Despite government steps to punish security force members and other officials charged with unlawful homicides or other abuses, open-ended investigations and the generally slow pace of criminal judicial proceedings created a climate of impunity, the report said. As for TNT's prisons, the report found conditions in some of the system's 9 facilities continued to be harsh due to overcrowding. It said all of the prisons had inadequate lighting, poor ventilation, and inadequate sanitation, but conditions at the Seoul Women's Prison were better than those in other prisons. The report said lengthy pretrial detention was a problem, and pretrial detainees made up more than 2/3 of the prison population. It added that most detainees' trials began 7 to 10 years after arrest, and some spent even longer in pretrial detention. The length of pretrial detention frequently equaled or exceeded the maximum sentence for the alleged crime. Officials cited several reasons for the backlog, including the burden of the preliminary inquiry process, it said. As for arbitrary or unlawful interference with privacy, family, home, or correspondence, TT's law prohibits that, and there were no reports that the government failed to respect these prohibitions, the report said. While the report found that the government generally respected the right to freedom of expression, it said it sometimes used the antiquated Sedition Act to limit freedom of expression, according to some NGOs. It said the government used the sedition law against former PCA President Watson Duke and against former Secretary General of the Sanatan Dharma Maha Sabha Sat Maharaj. The U.S. Human Rights Report further said government did not restrict or disrupt access to the Internet or censor online content. It added that there were no credible reports that the government monitored private online communications without appropriate legal authority. Last week, the opposition leader Kamla Prasad Bisesar accused the government of spying on key members of society, including the media, judiciary, businesses, trade unions, political opponents, and politicians using special software. The report said, although TNT is a party to the 1951 Convention of the Status of Refugees, the law does not provide for granting asylum or refugee status, and the government has not established a system for protecting asylum seekers. It said access to asylum remained a significant problem for detained individuals since there were no formal procedures to register asylum seekers. It added that as of October last year, more than 20,800 refugees and asylum seekers in TNT were registered under UNHCR. UNHCR's registration population of concern originated from 40 different countries. Of these people, 86% were from Venezuela and 7% from Cuba, it said. The report said that corruption was a problem at many levels of government. Opaque public procurement processes were a concern. Statutes governing conflicts of interest were rarely enforced, making nepotism and corruption commonplace. There were credible reports of government ministries and public companies manipulating or bypassing established procurement procedures to favor specific vendors unfairly, it said. The report found that government generally enforced the law in instances of sexual assault, but the courts often imposed considerably shorter sentences in cases of spousal sexual assault. It said that while T&T's law criminalized domestic violence and provisioned protection orders, victims who reported the crime often claimed that police trivialized the matter. Courts may fine or imprison abusive spouses, but rarely did so. Sexual assault and domestic violence were serious and pervasive problems. According to the UN Global Database on Violence Against Women, 30% of women in the country experienced physical or sexual violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime, and 19% experienced sexual violence from a non-partner, it said.